Hello.
In just one quick second, we will be live. Excellent. See, let's see. It's loading. It's trying to get on. Okay, there you are. All right. Thank you, everyone, and welcome to the health impact of COVID-19 on teenagers. We will be recording this session, and we also have a PowerPoint that will be sent to you at the end of the session. I mean, of the webinar. I would like to introduce Dr. Cater, give her a good introduction, a proper introduction. Dr. Cater is a professor and she's also a psychologist with over 20 years of training in the field of psychology and social work. She mentors and trains students going into the field of counseling and therapy. And Dr. Cater is passionate about the overall well-being or wellness of your physical, emotional, and spiritual wellness. That means your body, your spirit, and your soul. And she always tries to find ways so that, to make things practical so that we can all be well. I want us to welcome Dr. Cater to this webinar today. She's going to speak to us about 30 to 40 minutes, depending, and then we'll ask questions. Please feel free to use the chat, and Dr. Cater, feel free to ask them to, type in, whatever responses to you, and take it from here.
All right. So do you see my PowerPoint, the whole thing, or do you just see part of it?
No, we see everything.
Okay. So thank you for inviting me, Dr. Marino. I love this Family Matters series. I think that there's information that needs to get out there, and because people are in their homes, this is a great medium and a way to get people to, know what's going on in terms of like their mental health and everything else. So I am talking about the mental health impact of COVID-19 on children and teenagers. And the reason why I decided to go with that group is because I had read two articles over the last few weeks that really disturbed me. They were both about teenagers who had committed suicide. The first article indicated that the young lady committed suicide because she was fearful of everything that was going on. And she just was scared. And so she killed herself. The second article I saw was another person who also killed themselves because she didn't want to stay home. That raised kind of a red flag for me of, why doesn't this young person want to be at home? Home is our sanctuary. Home is the place where we feel loved. And so when I read that these two individuals had committed suicide, I said to myself, someone failed them. We failed them. And so I felt that it was important to talk about this COVID-19 outbreak as it relates to our teenagers and children, because, we as adults have our own issues, but nobody's addressing the kids right now. So let me go to the next slide. So this outbreak, okay, and I'm going to use different terms interchangeably. And I'm going to talk about terms. So I'm going to change it up to say pandemic. This pandemic is something that is unprecedented. We have not experienced this before. Yes, it has occurred in 1918, 1920 with the Spanish flu. But since then, we have not had anything that has had the kind of impact that this pandemic has had on our generation. And so it seems very scary. It seems just like, wow, like one day we were living our best lives and then the next day we're staying at home. For 2020, no one anticipated that this is how the year was going to start off. We were all talking about how 2020 was going to be the year of vision and clarity, and no one saw this coming. So, you know, you can understand why a lot of people, including children, would be fearful around this time. I mean, everyone has been affected in some type of manner, whether you've been affected directly because you've gotten sick, or a loved one has gotten sick, or you've had to take off work to stay at home with your children, or you have, a shortage in your salary because of your work situation. And some of us have been affected indirectly. We've known of other people that this has happened to, but nothing has happened directly to us. But the bottom line is that we are all impacted by this. This being something that is worldwide. We're all in the same situation right now. No one can, escape what's happening because it's just everywhere.
Dr.
Um,
Cater,
yes.
so maybe this is a place where if you can just type in the chat how this has affected you, how has this affected you, this pandemic affected you, your family, or anyone that you know of. Maybe just chat and just let us know. Go ahead.
You're saying type in the chat. I don't see anywhere to type into the
No,
chat.
not you, Dr. Cater, the rest of us.
Oh,
Yeah.
I was gonna be like, I'm scared. I don't want to touch it and mess it up.
The rest of us, type in the chat room how you've been impacted. Let's hear from you. Go ahead, Dr. Cater.
Yeah, and I was going to say that this has had so much media coverage. I mean, every single day they're giving us an update, and each update is different from the one the day before. And so, and nothing is cohesive. And so that's also part of like the fear and the uncertainty, because they don't even know. When I say they, meaning the government, because they're the ones who are disseminating the information to us. But like we're hearing something different from FEMA, and then we're hearing something from the World Health Organization. We're hearing things from the CDC. We're hearing things from our president. And then in our respective states, we're hearing different things from our governors. So it's like it's really sensationalized. Some of it, could be perceived as propaganda, because there seems like there's been an installation of fear. Just telling us about what's getting ready to happen and what's going to come, and trying to, somewhat predict things. Is this? No, no. Trying to predict things. As a result of that, you have people who are in a state of panic. I have never seen so many people in the stores. As soon as this pandemic came out, everyone immediately went to the stores. I don't know why or what this whole thing is about toilet paper, but there's no shortage of toilet paper. There's plenty of toilet paper, but people are getting water and toilet paper. And as you can see on the slides, the shelves are empty. It looked like an apocalypse. I went to store after store after store after store looking for just water and just the basic essentials, and these things were gone. And so that right there is scary. Who's ever seen this? The only time we thought that we would be experiencing something like this, particularly in California, is if we had a major earthquake. Well, thank God nothing like that has happened, but we never anticipated that we would be subject to a disease to the point where we would have to sequester into our homes, and that we would need to get this, stack up on these supplies. Are people putting questions up?
Only one person. Tanisha says, everyone is at home. My house is constantly a mess, and I feel like my identity is only made and cooked. And I feel I feel like I am a head chef or something. The rest of you, we want to hear from you. Please, let's add to the body of conversation. Let's hear how you're feeling about this.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to wear different hats while we're at home. Cook, janitor, uh, everything. We have to do everything. We have to do things to keep ourselves busy and occupied. But we'll talk more about that. So I want to talk about the language of how we're talking about this, the words that we
Mm,
use. Words are powerful and important, and different words mean different things. So, like I said earlier, here we were just living our best life. Now we're living at a stay at home. There's a difference between when we say stay at home, quarantine, and lockdown. Those words are not interchangeable. Stay at home means that we are trying to prevent ourselves from being exposed to this virus, and we're trying to, isolate ourselves to avoid, possible, cross contamination. And quarantine is if you've already been exposed to it. But when children hear that, and they say, "Oh my God, we're under quarantine." And what's even worse is the word lockdown. We are not
mm,
on lockdown. Lockdown happens in prisons and jails and penitentiaries. So we have to be mindful of the wording and the language that we use when we talk about staying at home. Stay at home sounds nice. Just stay at home, close your doors, and be safe. Not on lockdown and not on quarantine unless you are healing and recovering from this virus. Now, another
that's
word that
good.
we use, pandemic, crisis. Pandemic is a better word. Okay. There's another word, this outbreak. And I'm going to tell you, it says outbreak is a sudden or violent start of something unwelcome. That doesn't sound good. That doesn't sound good for a child to hear. Crisis, a time of intense difficulty, trouble, or damage. That doesn't sound good. Pandemic, a disease that is prevalent over a whole country or a whole world. Now, if you can choose the lesser of three evils, I would say that the word pandemic would be the best term to use when you're talking about and describing what's going on, rather
Mm,
than saying that we are in a crisis and that we're, experiencing an outbreak. So I would just say to, and when I say parents, I'm talking about grandparents, guardians, aunts, uncles, whoever is taking care of a child or a teenager and they're in your presence and you're dealing with them on a day to day. It's just best to use language that is not so scary.
mm, it's good.
Okay, so the children, they're fearful and anxious about a lot of things. Like I said earlier, the coverage is round the clock. It's like they're just programming you, and the first thing we do is, get up and turn the TV on and see what they're saying about the crisis. We need to really turn
Hmm.
it off. About the pandemic, I'm sorry, let me correct myself. About the pandemic, it's a
Mm,
constant feed of information that is negative, and that has an impact on you if you're hearing the same thing over and over and over, showing pictures and images of long lines of people, even on like the social media sites like Facebook and Instagram. You'll see videos of people fighting over toilet paper, and that's scary for a child to see. They're also afraid of, people are getting sick, people are dying, and they're talking about, anticipation of how many deaths there are to come, which I don't know why they would be projecting and anticipating that, but they do this and they say this in a way that makes a child feel like unsafe and uncertain about like what's really going on. Their fears can be about, am I going to get sick? Am I going to die? Are my parents going to get sick? Are they going to die? It causes them to have, excessive fears and worries and anxieties and feelings of uncertainties of what's happening. And the uncertainty is real. We don't know yet. It's kind of like they're kind of um, like going along and like, feeling their way as they go along. Okay, let's try
mm.
this. No, let's try that. No, let's look over here. No, let's look over there. So no one really knows anything, and that uncertainty is very unsettling for children.
You have some comments.
Okay.
Someone said, my kids are doing okay. However, they're 12 and 15, so they mostly miss their friends. I get that. They're attending classes online, but my son mostly wants to play video games with his friends. Another is my daughters. get nervous when I open windows for fresh air. She still doesn't understand how it spreads. That's very common.
Yes, 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 yes. I will get to that. I will address that a little bit later, that fearfulness about what's really going on and how you can explain that. So put that on hold.
Mhm.
But the children who are also impacted by this, and we don't think about this, are kids who have to stay inside. Um, they're fearful about what's going on inside, not necessarily outside so much. There are
Mhm.
things going on in different families' homes that we're not aware of. There's marital discord, alcoholism, substance abuse. There's domestic
Absolutely.
violence going on. There could be
Absolutely.
incest and sexual abuse going on. And for a child who has to, remain in their home, that can be a scary place. Your home is not even a refuge for you anymore. For some kids, going to school and interacting with friends was a respite, and now they're in isolation. There's not another pair of eyes like a teacher or somebody else who can see that there's something going on. And so to me, that stood out when I um, read the article about the child who killed herself because she didn't want to go home. Let me go back. There was something that I wanted to mention, talking about the language. Um, so in one state, Louisiana, this is I read this. You can look it up. They have a curfew where everyone had to be inside by 9 o'clock, and so to show the citizens of that town the seriousness of being in by 9 o'clock, they played like the siren from the movie The Purge. And I don't know
Mm.
if you've ever seen The Purge. Some of you may have seen it. That's a real scary movie. That is a movie that says that for 12 hours, the citizens of the United States can have complete anarchy for 12 hours of crimes and killing and all kind of things. So
Mm-mm.
for Louisiana to play that siren, I would have been terrified. If I heard the purge siren right now, I'd be like, what? What is that? And so they had to apologize to the people because a lot of people
Mm.
complained that really scared their children to hear that sound. So,
Wow.
that was like that right there. Uh-uh. So trauma. Trauma is when you have an injury to your psyche. Your psyche is your soul, your mind, your will, and your emotions. It's when you experience something extremely frightening and distressing, such as what is going on. That trauma can happen to you directly. Like I said, if someone in your household is sick or you're sick, it could be you witnessing that thing happening to other people. You can find out from other friends or family members about that thing. And if it's a repeated exposure. So with this whole like I said, media, it's a constant feed into our fears, a constant feed into like a propaganda, I want to call it. When you're traumatized, it's an overwhelming psychological pain that you feel that results in your dysfunction. And when I mean
Mm-hmm.
dysfunction, I mean your ability to just engage, interact, do things that you would normally do. And for everybody, it's different. For some people, for some children, they may not be, quite as upset or worried about it. But other kids, I mean, I know when I was growing up, I was a really scary child. I mean, everything scared me. I was scared that the killer bees were coming. I was scared of an earthquake. And so for a child like that, this can be very traumatic. This can be very
Absolutely.
traumatic. And some of the things that you would want to look for in your child to see whether or not they're being impacted in this way is if they're like jumpy and hypervigilant. And, someone mentioned that their child was fearful about opening the window because it's like we don't know exactly how the transmission of this virus is. And so she's probably wanting to avoid that thing. I want to avoid opening windows. Oftentimes there are sleep disturbances. Kids will sleep too much because they're
Mm.
just have no energy, they're overwhelmed, or they'll sleep too little. They'll just keep waking up in the middle of the night and just really feeling antsy. You'll see difficulties in their eating patterns. It might be that they're overeating, they're eating junk foods, they're eating things that they shouldn't be, or they're just not hungry. They're scared, they're not hungry. And with that comes, weight loss and weight gain on the
Yeah.
extremes. Kids who are overeating junk food, they're going to put themselves in a position where they're going to be gaining weight. And then those who are under eating, you might see them lose a few pounds, and you might be concerned about that.
Yeah.
Some other types of things that you may notice is a lot of somatic complaints. Kids will say they have a stomach ache, they have a headache, their back hurts them. I mean, sometimes they are experiencing those things, but other times those are just ways of how they are experiencing or explaining their distress, because sometimes
Absolutely.
they don't know to put words to it, to say that I'm depressed or I'm anxious or I'm stressed. So instead you'll see some physical symptoms. Okay, there are other symptoms that you may see, like in younger children. Sometimes younger children will regress back to young childish behaviors, meaning like they may go back to thumb sucking, they may wet the bed, they might be real clingy to you and like, anxious about you leaving them, or, even if it's going into another room, it doesn't even necessarily mean leaving the home. You may find that they want to sleep in the bed with you. They
Yeah.
develop other fears, like they're fearful of the dark, or they're fearful of something under their bed, or they're fearful that, what if something happens to you? They have nightmares. And sometimes you might see them having conflicts with their siblings. They're just not getting along. They're fighting with them for like
That's a good
things
one.
that are like not really a big deal, but it's just they're anxious and they're nervous, and they may even have tantrums. You might see them acting out, having tantrums, not acting like how they would typically be. For teenagers, you may see other things. Teenagers feel like they're invincible. This can't happen to me. So they may buck against you when you tell them, they have to put a face mask on and practice social distancing and they can't see their
Yeah.
friends. Sometimes they become forgetful, absent-minded. It's hard for them to concentrate on their school. Their mood is a little bit irritable. They're distracted. Um, or sometimes they may be withdrawn, acting out, doing like kind of rebellious things. Or on a very serious end, they may display behaviors like cutting. So if you see things like that, you need to have that person see a mental health specialist right away. There are still people who are available in providing services. It may be through telehealth, but that is something serious. Or they may even have to be taken into an inpatient type of setting. So,
Dr. Kader,
mhm.
do you wait? I just wanted to clarify something. Do you wait till they're cutting to to call a mental health specialist if you're noticing a lot of abnormalities and behaviors? Are you going to get to the point where you tell them what they should do? When should they call the specialist? Is what I'm asking before you move on from that question, from that statement.
Okay. Well, if you see your child in distress, and they're acting in ways that you typically don't see them, and you notice certain things, like a lot of times when they're cutting, they try to cover up, so that their scars are not being shown. I think that's a time when you need to start talking to them and asking them, what emotions are you feeling right now? What's going on with
Absolutely.
you? We need to have conversations with our kids, which goes into what I'm going to talk about in supporting them. We need to explain what's going on in the world to them on their level. We're not going to, give them over information about it, but talk to them about how we're trying to keep them as safe as possible. Explaining to them why it's important that we're washing our hands and we're wearing our mask and we're practicing social distancing. We need to talk to them. We need to have dialogue and conversation so we can know where they're at. Because we may not always, they may not always say on their own. They may not just come forward and just say, hey, I'm feeling this way. You're going to have to kind of like pull that information out of them. I also feel that, we have to limit the TV time and the exposure of what they're looking at on TV.
Yes.
And more importantly, parents, children get their cues from you. You are the barometer. So if they see that you are overwhelmed, that you are undone, that you are depressed, that you are depleted, that they're going to draw from that. They're looking to you because your parents are like your heroes. So when you see them, they can face anything. But if you see that they're looking like, I don't really know what's going on, you're going to
Mm,
pass that down to them. So what you want to
mm,
do is when you talk to your child, help them to name and own their emotions, not what they see you doing. How are you
mm.
feeling? Are you scared? Let them name it. Let them tell you what it is that they're feeling. And also,
Good.
it's okay to like say to your kids, I can't fix this. You can't always make everything better, but you can let them know that you're in it with them together and that you'll get through it
Mm,
together and that it's okay to not be okay. It's
that's
okay.
good.
Um, I want to say also that we need to keep things routine, same bedtimes, not thinking, okay, kids don't have to go to school so they can stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning. No, the routine of life needs to continue to be the same. The diet, if we don't let them eat excessive amounts of junk food normally, we shouldn't allow them to eat excessive amounts of junk food during this pandemic. And
Mm,
we need to also keep in mind that everyone is entitled to and may need some time alone and some
mm,
solitary time.
good.
Everything does not have to be with the family. I would caution, however, to be aware if your child or teenager is spending too much alone time because you want to know what
Mm,
they're doing. You want to make
yeah.
sure they're not listening to the wrong thing or just doing some like self-destructive behaviors, I don't know, using drugs or anything like that. So allow that solitary time for your child, but also, be aware. And then I want to just say this because I think it's so important. It is okay to soothe your child. It's okay
Mm,
to soothe your child
that's good.
because I feel like a lot of times people say, well, I don't want to baby them or I don't want to spoil them. No, that is not babying. That is not spoiling. That is reassuring your child that you are
Mm,
there for them and that you understand how they feel. You are making time for them. You are allowing them to feel important. You, it's just sometimes it needs to be about your child. You can cuddle with them. You can let them, they might want to be close to you and sit right under you or something like that. That's okay.
no,
Soothe your child.
that's good. That's good.
Um, for teenagers, I want to say you really want to talk to your teens. You want to talk to them. You want to ask questions. You want to listen to them. Some teenagers right now are very angry because they missed out on prom. They missed out
Yeah.
on graduation. They missed out on Disneyland grad night. They
Oh,
missed out on a lot of things. I mean, I saw
yes.
I saw Dr. Tanisha. I saw where she had her daughter do makeup and hair and a
Yeah, I
dress and
saw
take
that.
pictures. That was good. So maybe you might have to do that kind of thing for your child so
Hmm.
they don't feel left out because it's
Yeah.
like all their high school years was a buildup for that, and then that just got snatched from them. So they could be angry about that. And so we need to forget the notion that we say that children are seen and not heard, and we need to allow our children to be able to be heard. So what can you do as a family? You need to have some family time where you just do fun stuff. Play some old school board games, Monopoly, Life, checkers, chess. I'm sure Walmart is still open. You can go pick up those things.
Hmm.
Go for a walk. Get outside. We are under a stay-at-home order. We're not on lockdown, okay? Because if you were locked down, you could not go outside. You need to get up, go outside, take walks, ride your bikes, with caution. You're wearing your face mask and you're staying a social distance between people. Another thing you can do is movie night. Don't watch movies like The Purge. Do not watch um, movies like Pandemic or Outbreak or Contagion because those movies are just gonna just feed into the fear. You want to listen to like fun, lighthearted movies, things that, family can enjoy together and laugh. Um, Camp out in the living room, everybody get their sleeping bags and
Yeah,
their
that's a good one.
blankets and pillows and, lay on the floor and just find that time where you can just talk to each other. If you can, exercise. Any type of exercise is good. You can put on videos, you can look at YouTube that has exercise videos. And also, this is a time where you can pray together as a family and allow each member to be able to pray and just,
Mm,
support one another that way. Now,
that's good.
something that I've recently seen is these purchase meal subscriptions. There's Blue Apron, HelloFresh, Sunbasket, Home Chef. You can purchase these meal subscriptions. They'll have the box come to your home. It's a full meal inside of it. Take that out and prepare it as a family. Let one person chop up this, let another person put this in a bowl, let someone else put this in a skillet, and do things that you can where you can work cohesively. Another thing is baking, cakes, pies, creating pizzas, making sundaes, things that'll be fun. Okay,
That's good.
and so for little kids, children. So we want to try to, and I don't know how we can because we're such a society of like technology. We don't want our kids to have mindless hours of just TV and iPads and phones. Let them do fun, creative things like puzzles, paintings, um, do little projects. I know when I was in school, I remember we used to get a shoebox and we got macaroni shells and we would glue the macaroni shells on the outside of the shoebox and then we would paint the shoebox. So, come up with some things, write stories together, get some old magazines and allow them to do collages, just things that are fun. And for teenagers, someone had said earlier about missing friends. Zoom is what everybody's doing. Zoom chats, what's the other one? FaceTime. And also they have games on there. We found that out. I found that out the other day when I was Zooming with some friends of mine. They said that there are games that we can play on Zoom. So you're going to have to, allow your teenagers to, do some creative things. And
Yeah.
one of the other things too is how about do a history lesson and research past pandemics? Because I think that if they can see that history has repeated itself and there's nothing new and that those people got through that, then they can see that, we're going to get through this eventually. We don't know when, but we definitely will. And finally, if you need some help, I've been saying it's okay to not be okay throughout the whole video. It is okay to not be okay. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to reach out to other families to see what they're doing. And it's okay to have telehealth services, which is having a therapist to, talk to you on screen. It could be, one doing it for the entire family or for an individual. And I've listed the numbers of some places that are resources like the National Alliance on Mental Health and the National Suicide Prevention Line. So they have a lot of resources and things that you can, check out.
Good.
So are there any questions?
Oh, well, thank you. I was thinking there was more. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Cater. That was so
Comments.
good.
Comments. Are there any comments?
You've been having comments as you were talking. Let's see. Someone says that I read that to you. If you have any comments, please, this is the time to type it in. Some people have their kids. Somebody said my kids are listening in, and my 11-year-old is just saying, "Mom, this lady gets me. She feels me. She lives in a children's world." Isn't that's wonderful? So that's really
sweet.
good.
That's sweet. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was good. It says, this was so resourceful. Thank you. I have a question to you while they're typing in. What is your suggestion for teenagers, especially who? Well, let me ask it this way. You said it's okay to soothe your kid. Is there? Can you do the same with teenagers?
Yes, yes. it's okay if, they want to like lie in bed and talk to you, or just be close to you and hang around you. I mean, they're still young people, and they still want to feel connected to you. They still want you to, they still want to know that you acknowledge them, that you're concerned about them, that you care about the things that they care about. So yes, soothe your teenagers.
Very good. Uh, there are people who are saying, for my daughter, for example, she is a 12th grader, and we're just thinking of what we're going to do because they've missed out on everything. Like you just said, there's no high school graduation, there's no prom, there's nothing. And so, how do we deal specifically with that? What we've done, for example, is we're planning to have a graduation, an actual graduation for her. We'll do the prom. We'll see what that looks like. But
Mhm.
what else? How do you talk to a 12th grader, a senior who has lost what they thought, my entire, culmination of my education, and not only just prom, but other things like my daughter couldn't do. She was supposed to compete for nationals for her running. She couldn't do it. She wanted to end the school year with that, but that didn't happen. So what do we say to them?
Wow, that's kind of hard, because I mean, those things are things that you can't get back. But
Exactly.
again, I like what Dr. Tanisha Wells, I love that idea. Why don't you like set up to have pictures, makeup, dress, getting dressed up, and doing something on Zoom with their friends? Maybe they can do that, because I mean, with social distancing, we just want to be careful of just quickly gathering and doing things. So I mean, there's not really an answer I have for that, other than um, doing something special for them to make them feel like, everything hasn't been lost. It's just that we can't do it on the scale that we would like to do it on.
Hmm. One of the things that I share with the kids is, I said, this is life. Sometimes it's unpredictable, and the
Hmm.
ones who actually make it are those who are flexible. I said, I
Hmm.
know that first of all, I want to identify the fact that they've lost something. I know that you've lost this. I know that you didn't get to do this. And I said, so, but what can we do? How can we be resourceful? How can we be creative within this space? And just to talk to them about, sometimes we want everything to be better, but sometimes just life, things are not better. It's life sucks sometimes, you know.
Yeah.
And just, I've had that conversation with them, like, this sucks. I'm sorry that it's happening to you, but sometimes life is like this. How do we get better? How do we get over this? And how do we prepare for your next phase? You do have some more questions. Let me read them out. What is
Okay.
your suggestion for kids that want to play video games with friends? Is there such things as too much screen time? Oh, that question has come up almost all the time about screen time. Go ahead, Dr. Cater.
Yeah, I would want to limit the screen time. I would give them a time limit. Like, I would say, for an hour a day or so, because I know that there are groups that have games involved, and so that's fun because it's something for them to do. But I wouldn't let that be like the whole basis of their activity, to spend all the time on it, because that's it's not good for them, just for their eyes and other things, just the glare, and it's just not good for them to be on the screen that long.
Um, do we want to rectify the fact that we also have people going online schooling? They're going online schooling and that's just learning it. How do you then say, oh, I'm going to just, you can only spend an hour on TV? I mean, these are really, questions that we have to grapple with. That, how do I spend an hour on TV? I mean, sorry, on video games, when all day I've been trying to figure out how I'm going to do with school? How do we separate those? I mean, like, I think there's too much screen time, or how do we honestly say this is enough? You shouldn't be on the computer this much. Do you just say that? Do you just, I mean, and teenagers, you don't want to get in a fight either.
Well, school is a necessity. You have to do that. But being on your video for an exorbitant number of hours outside of school is a little bit too much. I mean, I would just bargain with them. Uh, do a quid pro quo. You do these
Exactly.
things, and then I will allow you to, earn tokens for screen time, for example.
That's good. Thank you.
Mhm.
Um, well, we can gather in 10 in 10 or less. So plan an all-day graduation for her, 10 to 11, 11. Okay, I see. Invite people over in group sessions. Oh, that's a good idea for the graduation party. That's
What was
good.
it?
Thank you. Dr. Wells, she was like, we can gather in 10 or less um or less of groups. And so plan an all-day graduation for her, like one from 10 to 11, another one from, 11 to 12. So you have just 10 or less people in the group. Does that make sense? It's more intimate. I think that's what that is.
Okay, but don't forget your mask.
Oh, no, no. I think is that online? Tanisha, can you unmute yourself? Is that online or in the house?
Well, if you want to use Zoom, you can do as many as you want. But I'm thinking
Okay.
if she wanted physically to have, family and friends around, because you know how graduation is really family oriented.
Oh, I
So
see, I see,
maybe
I
just
see.
have an all day graduation party, but you're doing it incrementally so that, group A, group B, group C, and you still get to see your whole family, just not all at the same time. And like she said, masks, you got to bleach down between sessions, you have to do your gloves, the whole thing.
Yes.
I don't know about social distancing. I would do that with a party.
10
I
people.
Oh, well, where are they going to be spaced out? Oh, like that. But I think it's
yeah,
a good idea, though. I
but I
think it's a
did
good
I
idea. Thank you.
but I did hear though that there were people who had like gatherings at their homes with small groups of people, and it just takes one person to be infected.
Oh Lord. Okay. Yes. Okay. That's good. That's good. That's a good concern. We were just gonna do it family here, the ones here with us. We're just gonna do it.
Yeah.
Just those of us in the house, and then anybody else can zoom in.
Yes.
Anyone has any questions or any comments, you can raise your hand or you can type it in. Uh, wait, do we have time? We have a few more minutes left. We have a few more minutes left. Dr. Cannon, what are you seeing in terms of your work? What are you seeing are some of the trends when it comes to trauma in kids and in teenagers, those that are home that should not be home? You know what I mean? Those
You
are
mean
in this dysfunctional homes. What are you seeing in your work? Are you seeing any trends? How are we identifying those children?
I don't see a lot of children. I see mostly older people.
Okay, okay, yeah. So, but what do we do with those kids though? That how do we help kids who are home where they shouldn't be?
Well, see, that's where other family members and friends need to check in. There,
Yeah,
we need to check in with each other, not just allow us to be islands of isolated pods. Um, Especially if you've seen things in the past, or you suspect things, or there's been a history of some things like domestic violence. We need to check in. We need to. This is where we need to use our village and not just be
yeah,
just isolated.
absolutely. I think
Hmm.
that's so powerful. That's so good. Make sure you are the eyes and you are the legs. And I mean, you can't be the legs, but you can call on the phone. You can just check in on somebody, because especially if you suspect that something is going on, you don't have to be a detective, but just make sure that if somebody's on your heart or your mind, just pick up the phone, call them or text them or do something, because you never know what's going on in some homes. And if there's something really significant going on, don't hesitate to call the appropriate authorities.
Right. And let me just say this, Dr. Marino,
Yeah.
because sometimes the perpetrator could be people that you don't want to deal with. Let's say, for example, if there's some incest that's going on, a young girl, mom is leaving her at home with brothers, older brothers or cousins, or people that shouldn't, you know, it's like that. It's a touchy situation, but it's like you have to be mindful that these things are and do occur, and that children may not necessarily say that that's what's going on. So you need to really pay attention, and that's where you need to start asking questions and asking how you're feeling and what's going on, and is there anything that I can help you with, and is there anything that I don't know about that maybe you haven't shared with me or told me because you were fearful, to allow them to have a gateway to open up and say.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's so good. I love what you said in earlier when you said that the way the vocabulary we use to describe this moment is so vital.
Yeah.
You don't say crisis. You don't say, what was the other thing?
Outbreak.
Outbreak. A pandemic is okay.
Yeah.
But that's so good. Just how we talk about it is important. So that's a takeaway. I really like that. So you guys can turn on your videos just so we get a gallery view, and you can, Dr. Cater, you can remove your PowerPoint if you just go to the same link that says share screen. Okay, there you go. All right. Hello, everyone. You can talk to Dr. Cater. Yeah, hi, how are you? Oh, I only see one person in their video.
I know.
You don't want us to see your faces.
Yeah,
She always has her kids there. I love it.
Everybody has their pajamas on. That's why.
That's okay. That's okay. I just wanted to say, I just wanted them to say thank you and whatever they've learned or whatever.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have rollers in my
hair.
Thank you, Dr. Cater.
Yes, Dr.
You're
Cater.
welcome.
Yeah. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed this and you something to take home with you and to implement today.
Now I can see. Hey, cousin. I see my cousin. Hey, Dr. Wells.
Hello, Dr. Cater.
How are you?
Thank you for that. I have my girls here because I know that this was something important for us to talk about. So thank you so much for that.
Excellent.
All right.
Excellent. And we love what was it that you did to Dr. Wells? What was it that you did?
Oh, her 8th grade dance. She's going to high school next year.
8th grade dance. That was so nice. Yeah.
So I said, hey, we're not wasting that dress.
So I haven't bought a prom dress yet, so hey, we'll figure that out. But I've been told that I still need to get one, so we'll see. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. We will talk to you guys later. Thank you for stopping by.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.